Hello, it's Sunday, it's Dishes with Del. We're making another banging dish. This week we are making tagliatelle meatballs. We're hand making it all, but if you can be bothered, perfection. Yeah, what more can I say really? It's a big bowl of scrummy, delicious, warm, yummy stuff to eat with the fam on a Sunday afternoon. It's an Italian classic and everyone loves it. So let's just learn how to do it, shall we? First off, we're going to make the pasta. If you're not interested in making a handmade pasta, zip forward. In the comments section down below, you'll see the timestamps. That will tell you how to make the meatballs. Pop on there. If you're interested in making handmade pasta, this is how we do it. Here I've got 180 grams of 00 flour. 00 flour is important for when you make pasta because you get more elasticity from it. It takes on moisture easier because it's ground super fine. So if you were making this, you would need to use a 00 flour. You could use plain flour, but you won't get the same consistency for pasta. You need to really be able to work that gluten. So I've got 180 grams here and I've got 20 grams spare here. This 20 grams is in case it's too moist and we can add it in. But we might not need it all, so that's why it's there. This is roughly enough to make 4 starter portions or maybe 2 main course portions of pasta. So first thing you want to do, scoop it into a volcano like this, and then we can make a deep well in the middle for the eggs. So we are going to make sure we have enough space with enough flour on the bottom. You don't want any countertop showing because you need that flour on the bottom to stop the egg sticking. And then we crack our 2 eggs in, 1 and 2, like that. And then with your fork, we are going to break up these yolks and start to mix them. And as you can see here, as we are slowly beating them, a little bit of the flour is being incorporated. So we keep going until that flour has been incorporated more. Keep beating and so on. Grab a little bit of the flour and bring it in. What you don't want to do is, while it's wet, let the sides get too low. But as you can see, it's starting to get thicker. You can incorporate more of the flour. And soon we will be able to get in with our hands. We make a thick paste because you don't really want to be working this. Once it's really thick, you can see there I've broken the sides and started to mix it in. Just like that. And you can start to work it with your hands. And what we need to do is bring this together, and we're going to work it and knead it for about 10 minutes. Start to bring it together. And this is where you want to really make sure that while you knead it for the 10 minutes, that you really get it going, because we want to make sure that all that flour is totally hydrated with the egg, and then it starts to become nice and smooth. So let's get this going. Get all these bits off the bench so that they can be incorporated. Get it on a jumper and knead. Rub your hands together, get rid of any of that extra stuff. Make sure it's all incorporated. It's so weird. For some reason I'm right-handed, but I cannot knead with that hand. I can only knead with my left. Weird. As you can see already, this is becoming just incredibly smooth and supple. We just want to keep going. And this is where, you know, if it was really sticking to the table, you could add a small dusting of flour, but I think that this is about right. And I don't really want to add any more, because when we roll it out, we'll have to add a tiny bit anyway. So the last thing you want is your pasta being too dry. But also, on the other hand, you don't want it too wet. Very fine line. Oh my God, it just feels so wonderful. I love making dough. It just feels so incredibly soft and just bouncy. Oh, it's amazing. And even though this has come together and is springing back, there are still these little bits where it's not really done. So this is a dough that you need to knead for a good 10 minutes. And there we go. Look at that. 10 minutes later, it's nice and elastic. It's super smooth and it just looks fabulous. Really lovely ball of dough. So now we need to just wrap it up in cling film and pop it in the fridge for half an hour to rest, and then we can roll it out and cut it. This dough was like a really good consistency. When you might need to add this extra flour might be if your eggs are really large, you know, so there might be just a little bit of extra moisture, but you don't ever want to add too much flour, because if it's too dry, it just cracks. So this will go into the fridge and we'll come back to it in half an hour and roll it out. All right, the dough. Oh my God, it just feels so soft and supple. This is just going to be incredible. It's had half an hour resting in the fridge. We now need to roll it. So we've got some of that flour. We want to dust the surface oh so lightly, because really we don't want this to take on any extra flour. We need a tiny little bit on the rolling pin. We're actually going to cut this in half and do it in two. So that'll just sit there for a minute. Now we want to roll it out into a big rectangular sheet. Oh my God, it's gonna be, yes, delicious. You can see it's nice and elastic. It's super smooth. And it's all just about getting it as thin as possible. Because we want this fettuccine, because to be honest, it's not really gonna be spaghetti, to be super nice. As you can see here, we can start to see through it, and that is it. Tiny bit of that flour again on the top, a bit more of a stretch. Now, depending on how long you want it, if we roll it this way, the pieces are obviously going to be as long here. If we roll it this way, they will be as long as the piece here, which is what we want. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of flour on there, just so it doesn't stick. We're going to roll it up. We'll get the chopping board. Ideally, if you had semolina, we'd use some of that, but not everybody has it. And then we just cut fettuccine style pieces. Just like that. And then we want to unravel them. When you start to pile them here, put a little bit of flour between them so that they do not stick. This is where the semolina is probably better, because it's coarser, and so it does not, you know, the pasta doesn't stick to itself at all. Oh, it just looks so beautiful. I mean, look at it. And add just a tiny bit more flour to it. Run it all through so it doesn't stick. Dust the plate with a bit of flour. And then these can just sit in your piles, ready for when you want to cook. So I'm just going to finish the other one and pop these in the fridge while I do so. Now we're at the meatballs. So you've either made your pasta or you're using shop bought and you just got to cook it and we need to make the meatballs. Either way, your choice. Often in a meatball recipe, we've got milk. This is great if you're lactose intolerant. Well, apart from if you put a load of cheese on at the end, but actually making the meatballs, this is a really great way to do it. So I've got my 100 grams here of breadcrumbs, and instead of using milk to hydrate them, we're going to use the onion and the garlic, but we are going to grate it. So get prepared to cry, because you are going to be weeping like a baby. Tears are going to be rolling down the face. But it's great because then you don't end up with them fucking, excuse my language, them massive chunks of onion that you often end up with a meatball. This way, it's all grated and it just disintegrates a bit better when you cook it. And also, what do we hate about making meatballs, apart from balling them all up, because that's just an absolute pain in the backside? Searing them off in the pan. So, what are we gonna do? We're gonna cook them in the bloody air fryer. Of course we are, because this is Dishes with Del, and that is my favourite appliance in the kitchen. So we're just gonna get this all mixed together. We're gonna ball them up and then we're gonna cook them. And for the sauce, if any of you are new here, I've added a link for my tomato sauce recipe. I'm using that recipe, but it's quite a thick tomato sauce, so I've actually just diluted it with a little bit of a beef stock cube. So we've got it a little bit looser. Yeah, but that's it. So I've already made the tomato sauce. If you haven't, get that on now. Follow this recipe up here. It's also in the description box down below. And if you need this recipe or any of my other recipes, you can head to my website, also in the description box. I'm also going half beef, half pork. Up to you, the ratio. I just love a little bit of fatty stuff, plus as well the fat from that will hydrate the breadcrumbs a little bit more. Maybe it's not totally classic. Totally classic might be a bit more like 70-30, or maybe even 80-20, but this is the ratio that I like, so that's what I'm going with. And 1 egg, and then I've got a whole bunch, not a whole bunch, I've got a load of chopped parsley, chopped rosemary, and some dried oregano, all in here. It accumulates to maybe 2 tablespoons of nice herbs to add to it, and then just salt and pepper. So we are going to grate this stuff, add it to this, hydrate them, mix it all together. Let's do it. Do it on the finest setting, not this guy. Well, I mean, also up to you. And what I've done is I've peeled it and I've taken the root end off. So I've cut it on an angle, taken the root end off. But we do only need 1 onion. I will see you on the other side of the tears, because I know they're coming. 20 years in this business and I still cry like a baby every time I slice or dice an onion. With this bit, I'm just going to finely dice it up and add it in as well. Here come the tears. Oh, I knew it was going to be bad, but God, it is awful. They are just so strong. And then we'll add garlic. And that bit, oh geez, it's awful. Scrape all the interior of the onion out, all the stuff down the side. Oh, so bad. But as you can see here, there's lots of juice and lots of wet, so I'm just going to pop it all in this bowl. Get all that moisture, and then add in the breadcrumbs and mix it all together so that they get hydrated before we add the meat. So as you can see here, they're nice and hydrated already. We'll crack the egg in, give that a little mix, and then that can all get added to the beef and pork. We add the herbs and start smushing it together. Oh, so strong. Just absolutely, oh, horrendous. And all you want to do is just make sure that that is all good and mixed. And then we just need to season it. Oh, I had to stop recording there for a minute. I could not see anything through my eyes watering. Plus, Gave me a minute to get this guy out. That's everything in there mixed together. Just need to season, salt and pepper. Now remember, you do have a lot of meat here, so we need to give it a really good season. There is absolutely nothing worse than them being bland. So do be generous. If you wanted to make sure, what you could do, you mix this together and you do a little tester in a pan. That's what we would do in a restaurant, just to make sure that the seasoning is right. That's it, all mixed together. You can see, you know, yes, you can see tiny little bits of onion, maybe where I didn't chop it completely enough, but none of them big chunks that you often get when you make it, when you just hand cut the onion. Mix is mixed, and now we're just going to ball them up. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit them on here before I add them to the air fryer, because I think I'm probably going to have to do them in 2 batches. This is up to you, the size of which you want them. Remember, they will puff up a little. If you were making it for a starter, maybe you'd want to make them a little bit smaller, but I'm making 2 main courses because Brownie's here. And if any of you are wondering about them lovely flowers in the background there, I got them from Brownie because I recently became a New Zealand resident, a permanent resident. So for the first time in a very long time in my life, I don't need a visa to work or stay anywhere. So that is very exciting. Thank you, Aotearoa. I've made 4 portions worth with 3 meatballs. Maybe it might be a bit much for a starter, but you can break them down and make them smaller. I mean, I've just got 2 little spare ones here, and I'm going to cook them up, and they're going to be my treat before I get to eat my dinner. So that's them there. We're just going to give them a little spritz with some oil on the top and a little spritz in the air fryer so that they don't stick, and then we're just going to cook them up. We want to cook them probably at about 200. Yeah, I reckon we're going to go 200 because we want to get a real nice bit of colour on there. And we're going to go for 10 to 15 minutes. We'll have a look at 10 minutes, see how they are. We might need to turn it down, we might need to turn it up. We want to make sure they get a really great brown colour on the edge. Like I said, this way is great because you don't have to fuddy-duddy around in the pan. Oh, can just about get them all in. And there we go. They've been on for 10 minutes. As you can see, lovely and golden on the top. What we can do is just quickly turn them over, put them on for another 5. Then they're done. And I've got here my sauce, my tomato sauce that I've made, that I added a little bit of extra beef stock to, just so it was a bit looser. This is here, ready to go. We'll add the meatballs in, and then the pot of water is already on the stove to cook the pasta. And this dinner is done. And great, they haven't stuck to the bottom of the pan. We'll turn them over. We're going to put them in at 220 for 5 minutes. And there they are, golden, bubbling, delicious. They've done. They had their extra 5 minutes at 220 to get nice sear on the top. And then in they go, into the sauce. Water is on for the pasta. I'm just going to put this onto the stove so that they can have 5 minutes cooking in that tomato sauce so that they can start to take on all the flavour. And then we're just going to blanch the pasta and it's time to serve up. So if you was not making this with the pasta from scratch, just making these, how long have they had? They've had about 12, 13 minutes in the air fryer. I mean, that is quick. Again, you know, the tomato sauce, I had it already made. If you were making that as well, maybe it's going to take you 45 minutes if you're making the pasta too. I think that's pretty good for a homemade meal. But if you're not making the pasta, well then there you go. Really quick, easy meatballs. So let's get this on, warming, get the pasta in and serve this bad boy up. Meatballs and sauce bubbling so that the sauce has incorporated into the meatballs. Your pasta water is seasoned, lots of salt, bring it up to the boil and cook that pasta for probably about 2 minutes. You want it nice and al dente, and then coat all of that pasta in the sauce and plate it up. You've got it all plated up, a little bit of basil on the top. We'll go for a little bit of fresh parmesan all over the top. And we'll just get stuck in. Oh, yes, please. that handmade pasta is just so al dente and so perfect. It's got the perfect bite. That meatball, soft, succulent, so tasty, and obviously the tomato sauce. And all together, this is just perfect. You should give it a go at home. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And we'll be back next week for another great Dishes with Dill. I'll see you later.